Excellent. And we have, is that, sorry, apologies if I pronounced that wrong. Is it Niamh?
It's Niamh.
Niamh. Hi, Niamh, you okay?
Yes, thank you. Are you?
I'm good, thank you. You actually have our panel of apprentices all to yourself at the moment.
Gentle.
Yeah, we'll give a few minutes for the rest of the potential attendees to arrive. But yeah, it may be that, you know, we're at your disposal in terms of Q&A. So
That's great. I've briefly been in touch with, I don't know who before.
Yeah.
Might have been yourself, Louise, got some information from you, I think it actually is, about the Chartered Manager degree.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously you said it's not starting, the next intake would be September, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Just after a little, that's kind of the main one from the panel that you've got at the moment, where we're looking to get some more information about that and kind of experience about how that actually runs in real life, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you say, that's what we're here to do today, really, is kind of, you know, myth bust and kind of tell you what it's really like to be a degree apprenticeship, because, you know, it's there's a lot of challenges that you face as a degree apprentice. And these guys have all been through it firsthand or are still going through it. So yeah, it'd be really good to kind of get their input in terms of, you know, how they've managed it and things like that. I'm just going to check my emails to make sure. I think there was one other person who said they were going to drop by, so I'm just going to make sure they can get in okay. And then we'll probably get going, I think. No, nothing through as yet. I have had some issues with my Eventbrite and how I've set it up. So it's probably me not setting things up properly and people not being able to get hold of the link. So no, I haven't got any emails or anything through yet. Excellent. So I think what we'll do is we'll just start, and then if anybody kind of comes part way through, then they do. So Niamh, just to give you a little bit of an overview, so we've kind of met informally via email before anyway, but my role within the Central Apprenticeships Hub at the university is to widely to promote our offer on degree apprenticeship programmes, you know, spread the word, get the word out there in terms of what we offer at the university, and work with a lot of our employer partners to look at training solutions that may be suitable for them, basically. And flip turn of that is obviously the apprentices' experience and kind of journey throughout our apprenticeship programs. So all the candidates on the call here today are actually existing members of staff. So they've kind of come through the apprenticeship route that way. So hopefully that will be suitable for you in terms of your questions and kind of what you have to ask. I think might be good to go around the room and kind of just give a little bit of an introduction to yourself, your organisation, and the apprenticeship programme that you've been on. Frazer, I don't know if you want to start. You're at the top of my screen, so.
Okay. So hi all, and hi Niamh. My name is Frazer. I'm the marketing manager at an IT firm called Apprentice. We are based across the southwest. I was on the Chartered Manager degree apprenticeship and finished it literally last week. Yeah, that's who I am. I'm trying to think of more on it, but I'm sure you'll have some questions. So, but yeah, I literally just finished it.
Excellent. Sally, you're next. In terms
Hi,
of...
Niamh. I'm Sally. I work for a small engineering company called Diamond Hard Surfaces, and I finished my chartered management degree, which I think is the one you're interested in, last week as well. In fact, I was in the same cohort as Frazer.
Excellent. Claire, do you want to go next?
I will. My name's Clair Nicholls. I work for Cornwall Council as a lead developer. I did the Digital and Technology Solutions degree, specialising in software engineering, and I finished last May. So I've been free for a while.
So it feel like a long time ago now.
Seems ages ago.
Excellent.
Yeah,
And
that's me.
Mark?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Mark. I'm currently studying on a degree apprenticeship. It's the civil engineering degree apprenticeship. I believe is in its earlier stages. And other than that, I'm currently working up in Exeter with a firm called Clark Bond doing multidisciplinary engineering. And at the moment, I'm training to be a structural engineer. So yeah, it's rather good that you've got a good array of people that have done the degree, but also you've got someone who's currently going through it as well, which is quite good.
That's great, thank you.
Excellent.
Yes, there's just a lot. Try to take it all in. Yeah, so just a bit of background on myself actually. Like I've worked in apprenticeships for the last 4 years, so I totally understand the apprenticeship side of things, the background information that Louise is probably familiar with. However, I've done apprenticeships myself before at level 3 and 4, and managed to do a foundation degree somewhere in the middle of that. But this degree step just seems, I've been out of it for about a year. Like I said, I've been free for about a year. So it's kind of getting back into it in a totally new job role as well. So I've only been in this post at the fire service since October. So I'm still quite new and still get my head around everything this side as well. So bit daunting taking on to possibly take on another degree.
Perfect. So just to kick off, I suppose, because you're interested in that chartered management element and kind of what how that program is kind of delivered and kind of everything that entails, it might be worth just touching base on that in the first instance, and then maybe going out to the wider group in terms of, you know, things like balancing your time and kind of all of those, the things that always elude us anyway, even outside of apprenticeships. So it might be worthwhile just kind of touching base on that first. So with the charter manager, I mean, I've probably given you some of this information anyway, Niamh, but in terms of the delivery, so you're obviously working towards that BSc Honours in Professional Management Practice, working through those modules and all the activities, the weekly activities that are released as part of that particular module that you're working towards, before you kind of have a final submission for that module, and you kind of work through the modules as you go through. Alongside that, you're building a portfolio of evidence for the chartered manager as well, and then you move through to, like Fraser indicated, that endpoint assessment for the overall programme. Fraser, Sally, I didn't know if you want to talk a little bit about that delivery and kind of your experience of it and kind of how it's been for you.
Do you want to go, Fraser?
Yeah, sure. It's probably a little bit different to what you're going to experience, Niamh, just based on the last 2 years we've had. So it did get a little bit, and I'm sure, Mark, if you're on yours now, and also will Claire, given we've been in this predicament for the last 2 and a bit years now, COVID did have some fun and games to play. It's by and large done remotely, which is great. I think there were meant to be, and Louise, you might have the number better than me, but 3 or 4 days where we were supposed to go into the university, of which I think I attended 2, and they were really useful. They were more like introductions to the sort of the modules. But there was also one right at the start that was sort of university degree level sort of core skills. So how to write assignments, how to do Harvard referencing, which was I'd previously been to university, but a lot longer time ago, so it was quite useful going through that. And you get a chance to then also meet the people on your cohort, and the university were quite good at saying, you know, interact with these people. You know, I think we got a WhatsApp group, for example, and that sort of stuff. The course, there are weekly tasks, but you can play it how you want to a certain extent. You know, it is easiest if you do 1 week, then the next week, then the next week. But inevitably, the working life isn't always that straightforward. But you definitely can do maybe a few weeks stop and then a few weeks, you know, catching up. It's not impossible to do that. And you basically work, as Louise said, you work through the modules. Quite a broad range, I'd say, on topics from the chartered manager. You got this sort of, I suppose, typical business sort of stuff in terms of finance, but then you got HR in there, sales and marketing. Trying to think of what some of the other ones were now. And you basically lead up to a final module, which is a project where you do project management on anything that you want to do, basically. Endpoint assessment is essentially you do a presentation on your project. You just talk about what you did and what the results were, and then you get asked some questions basically that say, where have you done X, Y, and Z? Can you? And almost all the questions are, can you give me an example on when you took responsibility, or when you led a meeting, or and then there's a huge spreadsheet of what they may be. But yeah, it was a good experience on the whole. I'm not gonna. I said to Louise before I come on, I was like, I won't completely gloss it up. There are some difficult moments. It is.
That's what we're here for, Fraser. It's
yeah.
the true picture here. We're not after, sugarcoating or anything like that.
There's definitely
like
a balancing act to be had. There's definitely a balancing act to be had, and I'd say, because a friend asked me about the course a while ago, I said I think the single biggest factor is the support network you have at your company. If the company are going to allow you the time and the space and the support that you need to study and to get through it, it's worth doing. If they're not, and I know that's quite an honest question you have to ask yourself, but if they're not going to give that over 2 years, you're going to find it very difficult. But it's, on the whole, if you get that support and they're okay with, they're going to lose you for essentially a day a week, then it's worth doing, in my opinion.
Cool, thank you.
I've seen a lot of faces nodding. I think everybody would probably agree with that.
I think that's what's just really. Sorry, Mark. Oh, I thought, sorry, I think that last bit, I was really because it's 2 years. It's easy to think, oh, this is great. And I remember when I first sat with Louise to talk about the course, and you get really excited. This looks really good, and it's going to help me in my career. But making sure that my boss. There were moments where I was like, I can't do this. I haven't got the time. I haven't got the capacity. And my team leader and my boss were like, what do we need to do differently? How can we help you get through it? Rather than, okay, you've got too much on your plate, let's take some of it off. It is difficult at times, but it's worth it if you can have that, because it's so broad, and it allows you to have an opportunity to. I never did anything on HR really beforehand, so it allows you to sort of dig into areas where you may not ordinarily get the opportunity to do so. And because it's working on your own business, if, for example, you don't have any access to HR at the moment, just as an example, you have to work on your own company. So you'll speak to whoever's responsible for that in the company and learn about that, which is really good. It allows you to have a much broader perspective of a business or I know there's a few public organisations involved as well.
Thank you.
I think what you've touched on there, Fraser, is actually really key. It's having that line manager that's really engaged as well and supportive of the programme. I know, from looking around the room, the candidate, like I say, I know that obviously met quite often with Claire and her line manager, and that support is really key in terms of making sure that you get the support you need and that structure within the workplace as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't have finished if it wasn't for a very supportive line manager, because it was last year. My course was 4 years. I've got 2 kids in primary school, and then COVID hit. And last year I was doing my final year, had to homeschool 2 children, as well as work 30 hours a week and do my final year project and everything else that went for that. So without his support, backing me, checking in on me, saying, "Are you all right? Can I do anything to help?" And I'm like, "No. Got through today. I know what I need to do tomorrow." And it's literally every day I was like, what do I have to do? Or by the end of the week, what do I have to get done by here to then keep meeting the targets? But and also the lecturers were really supportive because they knew my situation. But I wouldn't have got through it without my line manager support, definitely not, and the university support. So
that's lovely.
One other thing that I would say is, specifically about the chartered management degree course. The course is so well written that each of your weekly tasks, like Fraser said, if you don't complete them each week, that's fine, because it may suit you to come to your hours lecture, if you like, or whatever you want to call it, and have that information up front and then do your work. Or it may suit you to do the work and then go to the webinar to ask questions on your work. So you can do that however it suits your style of learning. And then at the end, when you have kind of a portfolio task at the end of each week, it's kind of a little 500-word roundup of what you have done in the week. So when you come to do your assignment, you're just practically lifting that into an assignment, because it's been so well structured that when it comes to assignment writing, it's practically all there at the end of the module, and you're just putting it together and refining it. So that, I think that's the thing for me, is that the course was so well. I mean, I can't say it enough. Yeah. That it was so well written and so well structured. And I said it all the way through at the end to each of my tutors. They're very, very knowledgeable in their field. I went into the marketing module dreading it, because I just don't like marketing, and I'd already decided that I didn't like marketing, and I came out of it loving it, because it was such a good overview of everything, and everything was applicable to the business. I can't think of anything that I've learned in the past 2 years where I haven't gone, actually that maybe doesn't apply to me.
Yeah.
Fraser suggested about HR, for example. That was one of the elective modules. And my elective module was international business, because that's what brought me to the course. And it was just fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Everything has been totally relevant to what we do here. And there are only 6 of us in our business. So again, it was important that I had the support, but it was also important, I think, that you go into it that knowing that you need to do what you need to do to get it done. And yeah. if it doesn't quite suit you that week, that you may just have to put in, go the extra mile the following week, for example. But you'll know that from doing your own apprenticeships beforehand and from doing your foundation degree. It doesn't all neatly slot into that little 1 day a week box. So
no, thank you for that. Yeah, definitely. Obviously, I know you were saying there's some elective modules. What do they involve? Is there certain ones that are mandatory that you have to do, and then others are you kind of can pick and choose from a couple, or?
Yeah, so we've got there are set modules throughout the programme, but there's one specific one, like Fraser and Sally have mentioned, which is towards the end of the programme. And currently our electives are strategic performance. No, I always get it wrong, Fraser. You're going to help me out.
The one that we did was HR and what were the other ones?
Operational performance and strategic HR, I think it's called officially.
Yeah,
but it is HR.
The HR one was very. I went into it, in all honesty, thinking, because I wanted the first 4 modules, and I was like, we don't sell internationally, so I knew I wasn't going to do that. And then I went into HR thinking, oh, Jesus Christ, this is going to be like as fun as HR sounds. But I wouldn't say it was HR. It was more sort of people management. It was more team. It was more how to be a team leader, how to manage a team, how to lead people, how to deal with like crisis situations. The title's probably a bit misleading, because I think everyone hears certain things and goes, "Oh, HR is X, Y, and Z," or that's what they're, especially when I'm getting, we work with an outside HR company. The stuff that I go to them with is really mundane stuff, usually around policies and stuff like that. This was a lot more. How do you lead? How do you manage people? How do you work with people on a human level, as opposed to necessarily the sort of practicalities of it? Because the portfolio we mentioned, the endpoint assessment, is very much geared towards, I think it's like 50 or 60 skills that you need to be able to provide evidence you've done. But there are a percentage of them which are like soft skills, and you have to provide that you've also got proved that you've got soft skills as well. So yeah, that's what the HR module. I'm not sure about the international module because I didn't do it, but
Yeah.
I'm sure Sally can have a little bit of information on that.
Yeah, I was just thinking we a public organisation, so we wouldn't do anything internationally in that. So if they're the kind of two options, it would be HR that I would go down. Just as a.
I think I'm right in saying, Sally, I might be wrong, that most people on our course, on our cohort, did do HR. I think. I don't think there were too many that did international, were there?
There were 3 of us.
Yeah, I think it was just the case that a lot of businesses, you either are dealing internationally or you're not, aren't you? It's there's not much middle ground there. But that module was actually the one I scored my highest grade in, and although going into the course, it was the one I politely wasn't as interested in, especially as there's a sales and marketing module, and that's my day job. The HR one was. I really enjoyed it. I actually feel like I found that one to be really beneficial. Just maybe that's feedback for the course, Louise. The name just is quite misleading as to.
Maybe we should change it. Yeah.
But that was it was useful, that one.
Oh no, that's great. Thank you.
You mentioned a little bit earlier, Niamh, about like the support in terms of academic writing and kind of things like that. I think one thing we do try to do at the university is obviously give you access to things that full-time, traditional students would also have access to as well. So there are things that you can access if you did come down to campus in terms of like writing cafes, and you can actually submit assignments as well to that writing cafe and have tutors kind of overlook those. But through all of our apprenticeship programs, you do get allocated a work-based tutor, and they do undertake visits with you throughout the program to firstly help you develop what you need to develop for endpoint assessment, but then secondly they are there as maybe that second kind of sounding board around assignments and things like that as well. Mark, I don't know if you've accessed any of the kind of support at the university on campus.
Unfortunately, no. I'm probably not the best person to speak to. I do my apprenticeship along with another person who I did the foundation degree with, and he currently works at Babcock. And from the sounds of what I've been gathering from the people that did the child management apprenticeship, it's a very different setup to the sort of apprenticeship I'm doing. So it's more of with myself, it's more of an academic, so almost like you can do a civil engineering degree and then you've got the civil engineering degree apprenticeship. That's basically the part-time version, and so the resources, as Louise correctly said, you actually do a lot of the full-time stuff, and you have got the availability on hand of all the full-time students have as well. So there's a lot of crossovers in terms of that. But no, unfortunately, in terms of the writing cafes, I think COVID sort of came at the wrong time.
Yeah, true, absolutely, yeah. Scuppered a lot of our plans, hasn't it, COVID?
Definitely would have helped though. Having done, obviously, I've obviously done my first year and my final year now, and having actually looked at the resources that the university had available, especially at maybe a foundation degree level and maybe for such a specialised course, you can see the benefit of it because you do have that sort of almost a one-on-one availability that you can have. So, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Where are you based, Niamh? Are you far from Plymouth?
Yeah, we are quite far. We're just kind of exploring all options with the chartered manager degree at the moment. Just to kind of get the feeling out there. There's not a lot of places actually offering it.
No. We're miles away. We're up in the Midlands, and I don't think that has made any difference to my learning. And I know for a lot of people, COVID wasn't great in terms of the impact it had on their learning. I guess from my perspective, because I was so far away from the university anyway, it didn't really make any difference. I felt that we were quite lucky because we were already learning online. So I think there are lots of students that were having, not on these apprenticeships, but maybe not ordinary university students who are suddenly having to adapt to a new way of learning. So I wouldn't let distance put you off. So, you know, if you're thinking, oh, I need to be looking at somewhere nearer, I'm, like I say, I'm miles away. I'm at least 4.5, 5 hours away. And I did make it to 2 of the campus days. They were really worthwhile, but equally, you know, if the ones that I didn't make didn't have a great impact on how I carried on with my learning, they were really useful days to go and meet people. They were useful days to learn other things about upcoming modules, for example, or to refine some of the modules that we were doing, but weren't absolutely necessary.
That's really reassuring, actually, because I'm based in like Newcastle kind of way on, so we are quite out of the way, and there's not a lot of places around here who are offering it, or there's a lot of purely online based ones that aren't offering any campus opportunities, I guess.
Yeah.
So a few of our lecturers were, especially during the COVID year months, not based in Plymouth either. So it wasn't like it's not like they were like based in the city and then we were sat in the city as well. They were, I think one of them was based in, I might be completely wrong here, Louise, but I think one of them was based in Europe somewhere at one point.
Probably. I think, was that Hugh?
But
I think he may have done some of the bits from his boat, probably, and that's a bit unconventional. But
yeah, I would say the same as Sally. I think the campus days are good, but not necessarily fundamental to the studying of the course. I think they help in that you develop sort of, it seemed from my experience that each group split up into like mini groups of like 2 or 3, and they sort of use them a little bit like what Mark's mentioned. He's doing it with somebody at Babcock, where people sort of teamed up with other people and sort of use them as a support network, and then go into the campus day once every so often was an opportunity to have a coffee with that person, how you know, just build that relationship. And when you have that one-to-one or in a small group of 2 or 3 relationship, it's also those people going, oh, look, I didn't get this week's work at all. Like, I've been to the webinar, I didn't understand it. What do you think? Then you have someone there, and you know, the workplace tutors, I think they're called. Like, I had Sadie. That is Sadie's role, isn't it, Louise?
She's a reviewer, so tripartite reviewer. The workplace tutor would have been Elliot or Liz. I think you had Liz, didn't you, Sally? I think Liz.
Jane on my one,
yeah. Jane. Yeah.
I'd say that the relationship they have with you is there was a bit of a similar to how Claire's workload got very large over the COVID period. I'm not sure it's called kids' workload, but we had a bit of a disaster in work at the end of mine, where I was very much on like, I'm not going to get through this, and this is right at the end as well. So I was pretty annoyed that I'd spent the best part of 2 years, and between Jane, my tutor, and Sadie, they were fantastic as a support network, and really were just like, the university support was really good, because I thought it was looking pretty miserable and I'd have to defer, which would just be another year of waiting around. So I don't think the distance, to be honest, makes much of a difference. It would be good if you could get down to 1 or 2 of the campus days, but I don't think it will have an effect on the result if you didn't.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah, just building on what Fraser was saying. For one of our modules, we had a lecturer who actually set up a Teams group for everyone, and seeing how that actually changed everything was actually quite well, because even though we could still do face-to-face meetings, because it was only last month, it was only the module before Christmas where we started it, and so we were allowed to go back into uni, having that extra line of communication in the very of a Teams message, because obviously we all know what it's like back in the school days, where sometimes you don't want to ask a question, sometimes you don't want to hold up the lecturers, or sometimes if it is a PowerPoint presentation, you don't really want to just stop and interrupt. So having that extra line of maybe even a Teams chat just to come in and say, look, I didn't understand this question, I didn't understand this question, and it was really clever. She broke it down into all the different modules, so we knew what questions were affiliated to, and especially when it came to the exam, because our exam was remote, it was quite interesting to go onto the Teams chat and just follow conversations. And even though we never really went, obviously we didn't discuss the exam on the Teams chat, just having that resource of, oh, I remember so and so asked that question, and you were able to track it. And then what was the response from the lecturer? And it was a lot easier then to just have that third line of communication, where if you didn't want to go up and speak to a lecturer, if you didn't want to drop an email, a Teams chat or a WhatsApp message, or even a group to your peers, as Fraser said, you develop your WhatsApp messages with your people that you're with. But even when you're on your module with your lecturer, having that communication with the lecturer is also important.
Oh, brilliant, thank you.
I think that's kind of similar with some of the recorded sessions as well, isn't it? Because I know obviously, you know, through Chartered Manager, they record all the sessions so that you can access them. I know, Claire, you've had some recorded elements with the DTS, haven't you?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, obviously my final year was remote because we were in COVID times. And the lectures had to be recorded at those times because, I mean, some lectures were when I was supposed to be homeschooling my kids and they were having Zooms and I was having to support them because they're young and can't do it themselves at that point. So it's not always convenient at lecture times when you've got life issues that crop up. So with them being recorded and posted in, I can't even remember what it was called. Is it Moodle or whatever your area is on the website? You can just go back in and refer back to them. And sometimes you think, oh, I didn't quite get that. So you can refer back to it and watch it 2 or 3 times until it clicks. And like Mark was saying, we had teams, groups for each of the different modules that we had. So that was really useful resource that people will go in and ask questions on coursework and different things. And it would quite often be that several people were thinking the same thing and thinking, oh yeah, but that's, or something wouldn't be right. And we'd say, but we can't access this or we can't get to that.
Yeah.
So that's a brilliant resource. And like I say, we had messenger groups between us that we would be our own support network as well. So.
Absolutely.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, it all helps.
We always try to encourage cohorts to set up a WhatsApp group between yourselves as well, because then it's something that's actually away from, you know, the prying eyes of the university. It's completely impartial. You know, you're 100% say whatever you're thinking, you know, without having to worry about that. And it is with your peers as well. So it gives you that opportunities, like Claire said, to turn around and go, okay, did anybody actually understand that question, or is it just me? You know, and 9 times out of 10, you know, that is what it's there for. It's reassuring to know that you're not the only person who's kind of in that boat. You know, everybody's kind of, it's surprising sometimes, I think, to realise that actually everybody's feeling the same thing that you are. So yeah, that we do really encourage that.
I think that peer-to-peer thing was really one of the pluses. I was one of the younger people on my course, and being able to work with people that are like business owners or like directors of businesses, or, you know, some people working high up in the NHS or Babcock that I don't bump shoulders with at all. And then I can go, oh, so what did you know, what was your answer to that? How did you approach that? You know, people that have more experience than what I am, who are doing the same course. Obviously, everyone's at different experience levels, but there are, so on the chartered management course, there were certainly some people which were very experienced, then wanting to formalize their knowledge and formalize their experience. But then being able to speak with like business owners, well, you run a business, how would you solve that, or how did you do that? That's not direct stuff that the university are teaching you, you know, but that stuff is almost as valuable, if not more so, because they're doing it for real, so to speak. So that peer-to-peer bit's probably one of the bigger. I got a lot out of that with certain people in my course, just probably being annoying as hell to them, but I took advantage of it. So it's quite useful.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. No, that sounds really good.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I will say, for if anybody who is listening back to this through any other channels, if you're of a certain age like me, don't be put off by the fact that things like WhatsApp are being mentioned and Teams and all of those kind of things. That was a challenge for me, and in actual fact I didn't make use of the WhatsApp group. I didn't join because I knew that it wouldn't work for me, and it wouldn't work for my personality, and I would end up getting quite bogged down with things. So you do what works for you. I guess the important message is that there are so many tools that are offered and you can cherry pick which ones you use based on what your style of learning is and what your personality style is, or if, like me, depending on how challenged you are when it comes to technology.
Thank you. Oh, that's been brilliant. Thank you. Really a lot to take away and consider, and take it all in again. But yeah, thank you. I honestly can't think of any other questions at the moment, and really appreciated your time. Thank you.
No problem at all, Niamh. Obviously, if you do want to follow it up with a chat with myself, you know, about any other questions that you may have about the programme and such, you got my contact details. So yeah, just let me know.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll let you get away, but thank you.
Good luck.
Lovely to meet you.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Oh,
See you later.
thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Go for it.
Bye.
I would.
Sorry, I didn't realise she was specifically interested in the chartered manager, but thank you all very much. Whilst we're recording, is there anything else you want to add about, you know, degree apprenticeships and kind of your experience, and maybe any other nuggets to send away to anybody else who might be interested, I suppose?
I think for me, Louise, when I was looking to do a degree and do a degree apprenticeship, was the fact that I'd been out of formal education for so long. It was such a long time since I did it. In fact, the information that we needed for the international business module couldn't be found online, so we were posted a book, and I was in heaven because I finally got my hands on a book. And you know, and in the past, that's how all my studying had been. You went to a library and you read a book. So I think for me, it's don't be put off by the fact that, you know, it could have been 20, 30 odd years ago since you, you know, since you last studied. This is totally accessible to everybody. It takes a little bit of getting used to start with. But you know, once I was into it, it's been great.
That's great, Sally. Thank you. That's one thing that we have. I mean, it's constantly something that's on our radar in terms of obviously that transitional part, you know, that there is between, you know, entering back into education. Even to be honest, even if you haven't been out of it for that long, I think even if you've only been out for a year or two, sometimes it's getting that mindset engaged again, isn't it? And that kind of frame of mind that you need to study and things like that. So it's certainly something which is always high on our radar. I think most of you joined after because we have had a module which we've kind of introduced before starting on apprenticeship programs now, and it's like an introduction to HE module. And that embedded within that is probably some of the bits that you two would probably have experienced on the chartered manager, Fraser and Sally, in terms of that contact you have with Jason from the learning team. So
Yes.
it gives
really
a
like
bit more,
Jason.
it gives a bit more information about that academic writing and kind of getting your head into that mindset of reflection and, you know, evaluation and things like that you have to do as part of a degree. So yeah. Excellent.
I think the only thing I would add in for anyone thinking about it is to look at time management and think when you sign up, have I actually got the time to commit to this? Because when I signed up, I thought I had time and I struggled with time. And then things got progressively worse with time management, as in I had so much more to do towards the end. So but planning your work and, you know, working out what I need to do, where your deadlines are, you know, getting like a Trello board or something and listing your tasks that you've got to do, putting your deadlines in and then moving your tasks into the done column once you've done them was a real benefit that you can actually see, but I am making progress, because sometimes you'll get really bogged down and think, oh, I'm never getting anywhere. And actually, the more you list your tasks so you can see visually what you have to do and then move them into doing and then into done. And as the done column gets bigger and bigger, it's a real like incentive to kind of keep pushing until you get to the end. So I thought that was quite a useful tool that I developed throughout.
Everyone loves it. Everyone loves a tick list, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
I think the thing
list.
on the courses that I think it's crucial what Claire mentions about the time. I think looking back, that's the biggest factor of whether or not someone should probably go ahead with it or not, because you don't want to be dedicating, a day a week for a year and then have to stop. That's where, when I had moments at the end when I was like, oh dear, I'm going to lose 2 years of so much work here. And that isn't necessarily to say it may not be a good course. I think it definitely has value. But if you're not actually able to get the time that you need to it, then you don't get that value anyway. So it is really worth considering whether you can allocate that time out your, not just your working life, but your actual life as well. It isn't a case of just doing it. Although they say, you need to have 20% of your working week, it's more than that. No, you have to give some weekends, you have to give some evenings. You can't just go, oh well, I've done 1 day a week, that's fine. It's not, but it's I think on the flip side of that, you do get you get 2 qualifications essentially. Or you do on the chartered management, and doing a degree in a few years is a lot quicker and a lot cheaper, and I think a lot easier than doing it at undergrad way. So I think that's a massive benefit.
Yeah, just coming in again, you mentioned it with. Sorry, pardon me. You mentioned it again. It's cheaper, and I think that's another factor that people should consider with apprenticeships. Is actually, it doesn't really cost you anything, because your employer, if it's an employer, if you're doing the apprenticeship for an employer, they'll pay for it, and sometimes they'll put in a little thing saying obviously you have to work at the company for X amount of years, but that's always better than a 9,000 a term for a full undergrad, which I think in this current climate, and I think the way that things are going, actually, what's the better option? go into a full-time 3-year course, or go into a 5-year. I mean, mine's 5-year, but I only did 2 because of the qualifications I had before. So from my perspective, a 5-year degree at university, a 5-year degree apprenticeship versus a 3-year bachelor's. But then also my bachelor's is sort of beneficial if you do a placement year. So if you do a placement year, that's 4 years. So that's 4 years compared to 5. You add the numbers up, and you also add the experience and the benefit you gain from being in that real world setting, especially in an industry like nursing or my industry in structural engineering. Just being sat right outside my office right now, 3 or 4 chartered structural engineers I can speak to with any problem, any issue I've got, or even younger graduates that have literally just come out of that process that you're currently in now, is you've got the graduate right there, you've also got the director there, so you've got that real world, as you've all been saying. It's the quality of the experience that you've got next to you compared to just doing your classroom work and then all the work you do around it. There is just a massive benefit that I found over these last 2 years.
Excellent.
And yeah, I'm not paying it back.
That's always a bonus, isn't it?
Exactly.
Louise, has the funding changed at all, or is it still the same?
Yeah, so it's still exactly the same. Yeah, so if your employer's a large employer, they'll be paying into that lovely levy pot, which is there purely for apprenticeship programs. And if they are on the co-funded model, they pay 5% of the overall fees, and the government pay 95%. So even for a smaller organisation, it's, they could get the likes of like for example, the charter manager is 12 grand. They would get that for,
it was about £1,500, I think.
Yeah. So because you were on the 3-year, weren't you, Sally? So yeah, it's yeah.
Yes. So I did my foundation degree through the Institute of Export. Yeah. So it was all international trade, and then did the final 2 years at the University of Plymouth, which was the chartered manager.
Yeah, so it's a bonus for everyone really, because like I say, employers don't, their contribution is only that 5%. So yeah, if they can give you the time, because that's the real commitment really, like you say, there's yes. In terms of funding, they're so heavily subsidised. The commitment really is the time. You know, that's
which
the
is
cost.
which is a cost, isn't it? It is a cost
Yeah.
to the business. Yeah.
So, but no, I 100% agree. I think, and that is what is so important about the degree apprenticeships, is we have to have that, and that's why we have to have that engagement from the employer. You know, it has to be something that they see as real added value and real benefit as well to the organisation. And then they're happy to give you that time, you know, and they're happy to engage with us as much as possible at the university. So, you know, things can be really contextualised back into the workplace and things like that. So, yeah. Fabulous. Well, I won't keep you all any longer because you're very busy people. But thank you so much for agreeing to be part of our panel today. Sorry that it was a bit pitiful in terms of turnout, but yeah, hopefully we'll still be, like I say, we'll still be able to use a lot of the content anyway. So thank you so much for coming.
Well, I think even if it inspires Niamh, then it's been a good hour spent. So
excellent. Thank you all so much.
thanks.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
nice to
Brilliant.
meet you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you all.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.